First 50 overs of one-day international cricket for India and Australia in 2019. Australia chose to don these retro jerseys. It's almost been a throwback to one-day cricket from the 90s. 288 is what Aaron Finch's side have managed after winning the toss, batting first, going steady at 41 for 2 in 10 overs, then going at 4, 5, 5.5, eventually accelerating to get to 289. Peter Handscomb top scored. Usman Khawaja and Sean Marsh also registering 50s in a late burst by Marcus Stoinis sees the Aussies get just below 290. Brad Hodge thought that 290 plus would be ideal on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday presented by Maruti Suzuki, and we've got his voice back. Hodgie, would you take that at halftime?
Hey, I'm back along with Australia's batting unit, so all's working well today now.
Would you go with that? 288 if you were Australia, happy with that? Or would India still be
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, from where they were at one point, I just had a look, 147 dot balls in that innings. That almost half of the innings dot balls looked like just sort of going easy, and that finish at the end is what they needed. Can India chase this? Obviously they can, I think, but at least it's given Australia something to bowl at.
Can you explain the score? Is it a pitch that isn't a 330? Mark Waugh said at the pitch report 330 is what they should get. You know this is a strong Indian team that they can chase. The approach seemed to be very old school. Was that because of an insecure batting, or was it just not an easy pitch? What do you make of it?
I think that the selections have lent itself to the way in which Australia have set this platform up. I mean, we've left out some serious ball strikers in Darcy Short, Chris Lynn, Travis Head, and we've gone for a more conservative approach at the top, I feel, with Carey, Usman Khawaja, Sean Marsh and Peter Handscomb in the middle. So, look, I'm not surprised that a lot of emphasis was going to be put on Marcus Stoinis and Glenn Maxwell at the end. But I think we need to push with 300. When you've got a foundation for that, there was an opportunity to really put some pressure on and score 300. And you know that India have a successful record in chasing 300s consistently. And also this wicket, as Mark Waugh said, looks like a fantastic wicket for batting.
I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, it was mentioned multiple times in commentary.
Yes.
Almost playing with a little bit of fear. I mean, Maxwell, eventually ended up facing 5 balls in the innings. Whether you're too worried that you lose too many too quickly, very un-Australian really. And what Brad just said, maybe it's the selection that's kind of set the tone for how this innings progressed. Everyone sort of playing themselves in, which is so unlike how one-day cricket is played today.
What's the right balance then, Hodgie? I'm looking at the top 4 strike rate, 77. Let's leave Aaron Finch out, 54. Got out early, but 72, Usman Khawaja, 77, Sean Marsh, all of them had a start and spent some time at the crease. But for Peter Handscomb's late flourish, he might have ended there too. Would you have liked to see one guy go a little earlier? They were 138 for 3 at the end of 30 overs. They were just under 200 at the end of 40, so they almost went for this conservative approach, like you said. But would you have liked to see someone go after them a bit earlier?
Well, I just don't think that's the way that the side's been set up. I think if you look at all these guys, traditionally, apart from Aaron Finch, they look to take time when they get to the crease and build an innings. So I think it really has been a team that's set up for partnerships. You know, we're lacking some firepower there with Aaron Finch hasn't had the greatest of summers, and yet, Glenn Maxwell, one that can strike some fear into an opposition, only faces 5 balls. So, yeah, there's a little bit of concern there, but I think it's geared toward the future. But I think all in all, I'm happy the way this batting unit is played, and they've played within their limitations, and they've played to their strengths. And if that's as good as they can get, then I think they'll find themselves on the worst end of the stick most times.
In I think 50 overs, we'll know whether this turns out to be a respected and well fought 290, or whether India chase this down in 42 overs, which we've seen them do before when you've seen this kind of
you want both teams to bat and bowl on a surface before you really. It looked a little bit slow, but still a really good surface. You saw towards the end of the innings when there were 2 guys with intent, or at least Stoinis with the intent that he showed. You can still strike the ball big. 34 coming off the last 16 balls or 15 balls, which helped them to get to that score, which now is a very competitive score, if not a winning one.
Have they got this batting order absolutely right? I know the personnel are there now and they've gone for Peter Handscomb. They've left out Head and Lind, like you said, Hodgie. But when you know Marsh and Khwaja have ensured you don't have a collapse, so you're not falling off in the first few, is there a case to put Glenn Maxwell in earlier, give him more time? That could be the difference between 280, 320. Does this batting unit, can they take that sort of flexibility upon them?
Yeah, it could, but the problem for Glenn is that he's also the one that comes under a lot of criticism when he does go in there and play with a flamboyant manner and gets out and tries to push the scoring along, and yet he's the one which gets questioned about the way he plays, with his shots. Having said that, though, I think if he's given the opportunity to bat at 7, if he only gets access to 5 balls, then it means the top order's done their job. So,
okay.
I think 288 is a really good score, actually. I do feel that, they'll be hoping that they can defend that. What you'll find is that Rohit Sharma and Shikhar Dhawan will come out and, like usual, probably be a none for 100 off 8 overs and the game's finished. So that's the likelihood of the way things roll, and that's the difference too between two different teams, one full of confidence and one lacking confidence. And we saw the graphics before the show about the amount of series wins that Australia's had. So maybe we need a different strategy, in terms of trying to build innings instead of going out there and having this carefree attitude and see what happens. So let's just wait and see if this strategy comes off.
We'll reserve judgment until we've actually seen. But there is a predictability about this Indian team when they are chasing, when they are at full strength. So you won't be surprised if we do see an easy chase. But if Australia do make a fight of it, then full credit to the way they've batted and the fact that they finally posted a reasonable score. At 290 is what they've got.
Yeah, but with 288, I mean, you still know if you get India 2 out of the top 3 out, you're well in the game. So there's enough runs on the board if you can pick up early wickets.
Absolutely. Assessment of the bowling before we start taking fan questions. Every game is almost a big game for the seamers in the absence of Bumrah. But Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, with the lack of cricket he's had, you're almost looking at him very keenly to see, is he still the same Bhuvi, having the same impact as he probably does?
I think it's first game over 2 months now. So you'd expect him to be a little bit rusty. Started well with the new ball. I thought him and Khalil Ahmed, I think Shami's comeback bowled economically in this game. Hasn't got anything to show for it. No wickets, but bowled steady. You can see the form or the rhythm of Test cricket carrying on. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar is you'll have to keep watching him how he goes over the next 8 one-days. Hopefully they play him in all because he hasn't had cricket over the last 3 or 4 months. Much cricket over the last 3 or 4 months. Was carrying a little bit of niggle. The more he plays, the better he'll get. The more overs under his belt. Because India need him to bowl well. I mean, Bumrah is a clear miss. You can see, at different stages in the innings, or especially towards the end of that innings when those runs, 30-odd runs were scored quickly. Bumrah is the one guy who can maybe stop that. Khalil's another one.
Did you expect more from Khalil Ahmed given the new ball?
Still pretty inexperienced. I think first time really playing in conditions which are not familiar to him. In India, you know what to do. Plus, you're playing against the West Indies. He played a few games in the Asia Cup, which was not too dissimilar to what you get in India. The conditions. So, first game. So,
are early no balls a sign of nerves at times?
Yeah, strange one actually. I haven't seen him bowl too many of those. It's one of those things. I think hopefully it doesn't repeat. If it doesn't, then it's not a problem. It can happen in an odd game. Yeah, but he's one to watch out for. I mean, if he can create an impact, that'll help Virat Kohli to have that extra option of having a left armer. But it's early days. I don't think he's sealed his spot yet in this team.
And hindsight call, would India have been better served with another wrist spinner?
Yeah, I think somehow they've got to find a place for Chahal. I know they're looking at that 7th batsman in Jadeja or the all-rounder. But Chahal wins you games or gets you wickets in the middle of that innings, which then makes life easier when you go towards the end of the innings because there aren't too many big hitters left. It's a tough one at the moment with Hardik Pandya having been sent back. But somehow Virat Kohli needs to play his best 4 or 5 bowlers and not try and somehow accommodate because he needs an extra batsman somewhere. He's got to put more responsibility on the top 6.
There's that balance of not wanting the tail to look too long, like Ajit said on the pre-show, Hodgie, with if you keep Jadeja out and play Chahal, then that has the bowling coming in at 7, which might be too soon. Was there a case to play just the 2 seamers on this pitch in hindsight, or would that have just been a very bold call before the start of the game?
I think it's a bold call, but also India looking to experiment as well. We know that Bhuvaneshwar hasn't played a lot of cricket, and also it's a pretty nice day for batting. There was minimal swing, minimal movement. So put that bowling group under lights as well, and I think you'll find a different result as well. But I think Australia traditionally have struggled against the wrist spin and also Jadoo. So if you could have found 30 overs of spin, I'm not sure Australia would have got 288. It's been proven in the Test series that we've really struggled against the spin of Ashwin, Jadeja, and Kuldeep. So it's gonna expose us as well in the one-day game. But it's just that fine balance. I think the loss of a true all-rounder in Hardik Pandya will hurt the team. But the skipper's backed his bowling unit, and hopefully they can get their job done. And whatever they post the Australians, I'm sure Virat knows that he can track them down.
Yeah,
that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, the one thing that why India has been so successful, apart from the top three,
yes,
batting wise, and obvious Bumrah and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar supporting him, is the two wrist spinners. You don't want to. I know it's a tough one in this particular game to make that 11, and eventually they'll somehow try and fit him in once Hardik Pandya gets back. But you don't want to keep him out for too long. I think they kept him out. Similar situation. They kept him out in India, and that series was okay against the West Indies. They could get away with it. Maybe a team who bats a bit better against spin, you might need to have someone like a Chahal. Hopefully, like I said, they don't keep him out for too long.
I mean, we go back to what we said on the pre-show. If you lose Hardik Pandya, that completely changes the makeup of the team, it seems. And ideally, it shouldn't. I mean, if you say that Chahal and Kuldeep are your two premier bowlers.
But anyone who bats and bowls or seam bowling all-rounder is going to make it difficult to then create that balance.
It wouldn't be the same to say Jadeja's an all-rounder, put him in for Hardik Pandya, yes, seam bowling, spin bowling, but still stick with your four best bowlers. Or maybe Jasprit Bumrah not being there also added to that.
Makes a huge difference. I mean, if Bumrah plays, then you can still take that gamble of playing.
If you have two seamers, at least one is Bumrah.
Yeah, absolutely. So he was a bit tight this game. But like I said, hopefully Chahal doesn't sit out for too long.
All right. Fan questions coming our way, viewer questions coming our way. Thought you'd be up and about now on a Saturday to catch this first ODI. Let's see what's coming our way from Facebook Live from Jiten Chandrana. There were some comparisons between the bowling actions of Raidu and Murli, but is Raidu's bowling action legal? I thought India didn't have a sixth bowling option. Then Raidu came on for 2 overs, and I was sure they don't have a sixth bowling option.
Whether it's legal or not, we'll soon find out.
That's for the officials to decide.
But it's not good enough, I think.
Yeah.
as a six bowler, that's the one thing that's been clear today. I mean, you can't rely on Raidu to bowl you those 2 or 3 overs. I mean, Kedar Jadhav somehow found a way to do it, and he's done it reasonably well or quite successfully every time he's got a bowl. But I don't think Raidu's quite there. So that's the other thing. None of the top order, unfortunately for India, unless Kedar Jadhav plays, nobody can roll their arm, which can sometimes be a worry.
He bowled 2 overs for 13. The first of those was an over of 3 to, I think, Sean Marsh and Usman Khwaja at the time. I could sense how irritated Marquardt was getting on commentary, Hodgie, around that 35th or 38th or 40th over mark, where he said, just get on with it, try and get a few more runs. Like Ajit pointed out, 147 dot balls, and even if you give Raidu 4 or 5 of those, that seems to be 4 or 5 too many.
Well, I mean, it's easy to be armchair critics, isn't it? Up sitting up, watching the game. We've also been extremely negative and looking for negatives in this Australian unit because that's just the way the summer's rolled so far and the whole year actually. So, look, I think there's a lot of positives. I'm not sure there's a lot of positives in Buddy Raidu's spin bowling, but you probably got to take that down, and you can't let him dictate any terms. As soon as a part-timer comes on, you've got to get after him. But that's just the way that this batting unit's sort of geared up. Warney and that were a bit critical of the way that our batsmen came in and lacked a little bit of intent, in getting a running game going and get the ball into the outfield and run hard and push the twos. So that's something we might probably try and look at in the future. But all in all, I thought they did well. They built partnerships and we didn't lose back-to-back wickets. So that's what you want when you want to try and build a big total.
I actually like what Hodge is saying. He's offering a different, outlook to what the current state of Australian cricket is. And I can understand the greats that they are in Shane Warne and the gifted player that Marquardt was frustrated at watching this. But would you concur with Hodgie that expectations need to be altered a little bit when it comes to watching this group and looking at that? This is a good start to the ODIs.
Yeah, I think so. I think eventually they've got to score. Maybe it's sometimes not important how you get it. Okay, that finish helped to get them to that 290. Whether it's enough or not, we'll find out. But at least it's given them something to bowl at. They could have gone hard and being 250 all out, and then it's going to be even more difficult. So yeah, I understand what Hodgie's saying. Maybe, and it's a confidence thing. When you're playing well, it just naturally happens sometimes for players. I mean, Indian bowling at the today, in spite of being a good pitch, wasn't spectacular, but it was good enough. It's just the confidence flowing in the team, which helps. And this innings might help the batters. I think 2 or 3 of them have played long enough or got 50s, and Stoyan is to finish that inning. So going forward, it'll help. Alex Carey at the top looked quite comfortable.
A great catch.
Was a great catch by Rohit. So no, I think they eventually got to a score, which if they can bowl well and field or save some runs in the field, could make things interesting for India to chase.
I mean, sometimes it's a bit harsh for this unit as much as that's going on. There were comparisons made by Shane Warne on commentary on the England team and the way they approach one-day cricket, which is pretty much in a league of its own now against the Aussies. I don't know what annoyed Warnie more, Hodgie, the fact that England play that way, that it was England that seemed to be playing that kind of cricket, and he has to make them the benchmark for this Aussie team, but completely different skill set of players. Fair enough that if you were making an appeal of sorts on behalf of the team to the Australian public, you'd ask them to be more patient and expect different things from this group?
Well, we've lost the reliability, haven't we? We've lost Steve Smith, who just walks in at number 4 and is guaranteed to peel off a 50 if he needs to. And David Warner, who is our aggressor at the top. Aaron Finch has had a few partners at the top now, and we're still searching for that thing. We've tried Darcy Short, we've tried Chris Lynn, we've tried Travis Head also at the top. So I just feel that the roles just need some clarity. So obviously Justin set the roles pretty clearly on this, this game. It just looks like, well, he's built partnerships, and hopefully Stoinis and Maxwell, can get us a hurry on at the end there. So it's going back to the old days of Jeff Marsh opening the batting and peeling off 100 after 45 overs. But that might have to be the recipe that we're going to get to. So the problem is that it just leaves a lot of emphasis onto the shoulders of Glenn Maxwell and Marcus Stoinis at the end.
Okay, more questions coming our way. Let's dig out a few on this halftime show on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday. Kostub Krishnamurthy, with KL and Pandya missing, is India missing a batsman? Would Rishabh Pant be called back for the next game, since he's probably out in Tasmania babysitting anyway? I'm not sure that's what he's doing, but yeah, I get your reference.
Still babysitting?
Yeah, I think those kids have grown up now. But the KL Rahul, we know, may not have anyway made the team unless for a reserve opener. Do you see room for Rishabh Pant around this
I
team?
don't know. I mean, they should name a replacement. Again, you'll have 3 wicket keepers in the squad of 15. I'm not quite sure how that goes.
Is he good enough to make it just as a batsman?
I think he should have been ahead of Dinesh Karthik. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm not quite sure why he's been left out, whether it's a bit of a break for him, but doesn't look like, because he's part of the
T20.
To
get a break at 20.
Yeah, he's part of the T20 squad, which is going to New Zealand anyway. So, bit strange. They might pick him, but I'd rather look at another batsman. It's an opportunity to see another batsman and maybe a number 4 or 5. There's Kedar Jadhav still in the squad who might come in. So I don't think they're necessarily missing a batsman in the 11 at the moment, but I'm highly unlikely that they'll recall Pant now. A 3rd wicketkeeper in that squad.
Let's have a look at a question coming from YouTube as well. YouTube Live throwing in some questions on this halftime show. From Parag Roy Chaudhary, people criticised Hanscom's selection in the side. How well did he play according to you, Brad Hodge?
Oh, I thought he was excellent. That's the first sort of 50. I think that's his second 50 he's made for his country in one-day cricket. So, I don't think he could have played any better. I thought that he did exactly what he was asked to do. He scored the highest score, and I thought he did really well. I don't think you can ask for any more. And, that's the one different thing about Test match to one-day cricket, is that one-day cricket can be a lot more flexible with your technique, and we saw how vulnerable he was in Test matches. But with no slips in a gully, he'll be able to manipulate the ball around, and he's easily our best player of spin behind Steve Smith. So that will probably help the selection, especially when you got great bowlers like Kuldeep, Jadoo, Chahal in the squad. So that's probably where that selection came from. But Peter Handscomb, well done. I thought he played particularly well.
I mean, 8 matches at an average of 21 in ODI cricket, and yes, this was his second 15 ODI cricket. But what would you look at as the road for Peter Handscomb now? There are obviously just a few spots that are up for grabs, but many contenders for it. Once Smith and Warner come back, that changes things up. But Peter Handscomb, is he someone you'd want to just keep in that ODI squad, given how he plays spin, given what kind of pitches you might expect in England, in spite of the fact that he doesn't have the best numbers?
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? The problem is we have no idea what is going to happen with Steve Smith and David Warner, whether they're going to get selected, whether they're going to come straight back in. You'd assume they would after the summer that we've had. But, I mean, if these guys keep performing, all they can do is, either Sean Marsh or Peter Handscomb's going to be vulnerable, because that's exactly where Steve Smith's going to slot in. So, I guess they're going to have a good old-fashioned shootout for the next couple of months to see who holds that spot down. But I think he's a great player of spin. And if spin's going to play a part in England, which it generally does, then he'll probably hold his spot and make a pretty good impact in this side. We saw at the end as well, he's got some power to the onside. So, that's another thing which needs to be looked at.
Gee, we've spent the entire summer talking about can't wait for Smith and Warner to come back. Now you're saying if they come back, you don't know if they'll be in the team. Where do Australia go from there? If that turns out, you wouldn't play them straight away. Whatever form they might be, whatever touch they might be in, it seems like all they need to do is just be available and they'll be in.
Well, they're in. I mean, they could fit into a rugby side at the moment, our footy side, whatever you want, they're in. It's just that, there's been no, publicity about whether they're going to come straight back in, when they're going to come straight back in. I mean, they're playing in Bangladesh Premier League at the moment, so in Australia, there's been no sort of direction that, they're going to come back in, they're going to play these 2 games against Pakistan, and they're going to slot straight back in. So, I mean, only those people right in the know will have an idea what's going to happen. And I mean, they're going to come back in, but it's just when and where. It must be hard for these guys over the top of their shoulders looking back, knowing that Warner and Smith are going to come in.
Sure.
See how you go.
I mean, I quite like how Handscomb played. I mean, it's so different to what we've seen the Test matches. Obviously, just gives Australia another option if we can keep sort of building on this innings, because in that middle of the innings, someone who's busy and can still hit the boundary or play the big shot, especially against spin, can be really handy.
Haji makes a good point. There are significant limitations in Test cricket, especially if the ball's moving around. Played well when he came to India, the amount of spin that he had on offer, but you get away with it now in one-day cricket. You find a way, rather. Let's put it this way.
And also there are 5 fielders in the ring, so there's always a gap on offer somewhere. If you're a good enough batsman, or if you can maneuver or use that gap, there's one less fielder on the boundary. Makes the job of the bowlers even harder. I mean, that's why in the middle of the innings you need a little bit more intent from batsmen, because there's always a boundary to be found, which that's why the scores are that much higher. So, I played really well. I thought, just built his innings well and then accelerated when he needed to. So, some positives for Australia.
It's almost brunch time on a Saturday in India, and if you're just catching up with the game, 288 is a good amount of runs for Australia, who've had questions about their batting. More questions coming from YouTube Live. Let's have a quick look at what Tesh Raj has asked. Why did our fielding look shoddy today? Complacency?
It was actually. I mean, hasn't happened too many times recently. Don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of hangover of Test cricket at the moment. Some tired legs out there, but you don't. That's the one thing I think India has done well in recent times, is field well. I mean, so guys like Jadeja and Virat Kohli himself. There are a couple of sort of slowish movers. It wasn't too bad. But India has been better in recent times. I don't, that hopefully they'll pick it up in the next game that they play.
Yeah, I mean, that can happen as a fast bowler when you've been sitting out, or any players. You've been sitting out. Bhuvneshwar Kumar's been sitting out a long time. Rohit Sharma's had a trip up and down. Shikhar Dhawan's not been having much competitive cricket for a while. There are a few of those. I don't think Shikhar Dhawan didn't play much domestic cricket either.
I mean, there's about 5 or 6 of them. MS Dhoni
MS Dhoni's had literally no cricket. There you go. So
Bhuvneshwar Kumar, you could see a little bit rusty, even though he must have had millions of nets over these last couple of months. It is nothing like being out there in a match. And in one-day cricket, there's very little time for you to get into rhythm because the batsman's always after you. So yeah, maybe a little bit of tiredness crept in the field. He'll be better off for it in the next game. There's no doubt about it.
You and me are going to hold off on MS Dhoni any further until we see him bat a little more. Let's have a look at another question from our Facebook Live. And as we just look to wrap things up on the halftime show from Mayur Mehbubani. Is Khalil in the Indian team just because India is desperately looking for a left-arm seamer? According to Mayur, there's no pace, no variation. He's someone who's been rushed into international cricket way too soon. Ajit?
I don't know yet, actually, to be honest, about Khalil. He looked good in India at times. I think I'll have to see a bit more of him. I think he'll have to do a bit more over these next, 3 one-days here. One's gone already. 5 in New Zealand and 5 against Australia and India to make a case. Yeah, obviously a left armer is always handy if he's bowling well enough. Again, maybe lack of cricket coming into this one day a little bit. Sometimes you need enough bowling behind you.
Was this a fair pitch to judge him?
Yeah, it was good pitch. Yeah. That's the one thing. I mean, before you talk about bowling, I mean, it was still a good pitch, slowish pitch. So one game you shouldn't pass a judgment on anyone. Sure. I think we'll have to wait and see how he progresses in this series because there is going to be a few more opportunities for him. He'll have to show improvement to stay in the squad.
All right, well, maybe New Zealand ball moves a bit more. He was okay against the West Indies when the ball was moving, but Khalil Ahmed first game in Australia, maybe hold on to a few more opportunities before we pass judgment. One more question from YouTube before we move on to looking ahead to the chase. Jishu Adhikari, Shami didn't get wickets, but he feels he's been the most impressive fast bowler today. I like the fact that lots of questions on the fast bowlers. What do you think about Mohammad Shami's comeback? I'll let you take this one as well. I'll go to Hodge.
Yeah, really good. I like I said before, 46 of his 10 didn't get a wicket today. But I mean, I've always felt you come out of a test series and you've bowled as well as he has. You're in good rhythm. The fitness is up there. 10 overs don't feel like a lot suddenly when you come into one days. And you can actually put the ball where you want because you're in such good form. So it was impressive. He was impressive through those 4 tests, and he's carried on a few more wickets in that last column will help him even more. But I think he's had a good day. Yeah,
wicketless. But was he the pick of the bowlers for you, Haji? If you compare him, first look of Khalil Ahmed for you in Australia to assessment of the Indian pacers without the key cog that Jasprit Bumrah is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're missing Bumrah and also Hardik as well, who's pretty good with the ball himself. So, yeah, there's 2 frontline seamers that you'll probably have that are in there. But I thought Mohammad Shami was excellent. And also, credit to the Indian selection committee to get him in there after having such a really, really good year. He looks fit. He looks like he's bowling well. He knows where he's putting the ball. He just looks like a strong competitor. And that's exactly what the captain wants. Good selection. He'll certainly put some pressure on, for the final team into that World Cup, for sure, along with Bhubaneswar and Bumrah. It could be a formidable pace attack.
All right, tell us a bit as we look forward to the chase about Australia's pace attack. What do you know of Jai Richardson? We've seen some of Jason Behrendorff and very impressive when he made his T20I debut, but as a 10-over bowler, thoughts on whether Australia it is an inexperienced bowling lineup, even though they've got 55-year-old Peter Siddle in that rank.
He's sorry to interrupt. Yeah. He's not picked any of them in his Fab 4. So does that answer the question or?
Well, sometimes you play the other way, right? Whoever you pick ends up doesn't getting the points. But that's Jai Richardson's record for you. Just 4 games, an average of 38. He's partnered with Jason Behrendorff, who makes his ODI debut today. Haji, thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's just probably lack of experience, isn't it? That's the only thing which is stopping these youngsters up. Look, we know Behrendorff's got the skill. The problem with these guys is they haven't been playing a lot of cricket recently past 4 overs. They've been playing Big Bash, which is only 4 overs. So I'm a little bit nervous about how they'll go over the course of 50 overs. But Peter Siddle will definitely execute his skills well. Just use the experience. Jai Richardson's got some pace. He should trouble the batsman early, and so should Jason Behrendorff. But if the ball doesn't swing, I think we're in trouble because I'm not sure how. That's the great thing about a wrist spinner where they trouble you. So with Nathan Lyon being in that attack, it just looks a fraction similar. That's the only one thing I'm nervous about.
Do both the young ones take the new ball, or does Peter Siddle get a crack with the new ball?
No, both the new ones will take the new ball. They're from Perth, so I'm pretty sure Justin will give the youngsters from Perth an opportunity. Peter Siddle's not necessarily a new ball bowler. He come on first change in Test cricket most times and bowls first change for his state, Victoria, and also in T20. So not a known new ball taker. So he'll come on after those guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the numbers, it seems like a potential mismatch with how prolific India's top three are and the fact that Australia don't have their frontline bowling attack. Jai Richardson, young in his career, of course. Peter Siddle hasn't played, as I mentioned on the pre-show, in 8 years in ODI cricket. Nathan Lyon, 15 matches only in the 7 or 8 years that he's been around in international cricket. Marcus Stoinis, the other option with the ball. You would think that there's nothing in this that would trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the one
India's
thing
top
is
order.
Behrendorff, left armour. I think India's had some issues with left arm seamers, at least with the new ball, if it does swing. I think most batsmen do have problems if the left arm can get the ball to swing, but India in particular, I mean, we've seen Mohammad Amir trouble them at times. There's been other times as well. So if we can get it right to Rohit Sharma up front, I mean, sometimes Rohit can be susceptible if the ball does come back in. So that's an option. But yeah, I mean, experience-wise, there is no match, and they'd be desperate that the ball does swing early on because it's an easy pace pitch as well. They'll need a little bit of movement to trouble this Indian pair.
Will the behaviour of will conditions change at all? Second innings, Haji?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I think it'll come on nicely. Should come on nicely under the lights. Just looking at that, what's an interesting comparison, I guess, is the way Mohammad Shami bowled, and yet Australia resting their frontline seamers. It's interesting because I think we need to process how we're going to get wins in the short future, and leaving three best bowlers out is probably a tough thing. This is a really inexperienced attack against a high quality batting lineup, and if they get the job done, fair dues to them. But I think it'll just be a pretty good batting surface all through the night.
Haji, you've got to blame Pujara for it, for leaving all those three guys out.
That's right. I mean, he's been up there in Saurashtra just batting in the nets for about 10 hours a day. So he certainly wore our bowlers down, and I'm pretty much all they do is when they go to sleep see Pujara all night. So they're probably happy to see the back of him.
Players already on their way out to the field. Quick predictions, and of course have a look at how their Fab 4 results are. So we'll quick look at that. And Mohammad Shami was picked by both these two gentlemen, and he ended up wicketless. But they did get points that Ajit Agarkar of Usman Khwaja. 10 points for Shami for a catch, but 79 points for Ajit. You are still wanting to push your petition of having us pick 4 per innings and not per game.
I mean, we'll talk about it more later.
But you have Jason Behrendorff to look forward to, and Virat Kohli.
Yeah.
Haji's got Virat Kohli too. That's pretty much a given in an India ODI game. But he did get some points of Peter Hanscom, so that is the difference. You are narrowly ahead, Brad Hodge, but you didn't pick a single Aussie bowler like Ajit points out.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a lot of success for the fast bowling group.
Thanks for that, Haji. Always a pleasure. Short and sweet. Thank you, Ajit Agarkar. Get your thoughts at the end of the game. Australia have got the runs on the board, so India will have to do what they've done many times before, bat particularly well to get them. We'll see how that is on the post show on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday, presented by Maruti Suzuki.